Hello fellow YouTubers, it's me Tomversal here, and it's supposedly Shark Week this week, and as such I thought that I should do this video now, which is my Jaws movies ranked video. Jaws is one of those franchises that I have always beloved so much. As a kid I had a bedroom designed after Jaws that my dad painted. I collect a lot of shark books, shark teeth, shark jaws, shark toys, shark video games, and a lot of shark movies, which actually led to me wanting to be a shark biologist for a period of time, but obviously I grew out of that. I even used to make Jaws comics as a kid based on each of the movies. That's how much I loved this series then. So anyway, I truly love this franchise even today, and as such I am really motivated to do this one. I'm going to be including Jaws, Jaws 2, Jaws 3, Jaws the Revenge, and just because I'll likely never get to talk about it again, I'll even throw in Jaws 5, Cruel Jaws 2. So without further ado, this is the Jaws movies ranked. Up at number 5 we have Jaws 5 Cruel Jaws. Before we get into this one, I want to mention that this movie is unofficial, and if you want to skip this part of the video because of that, then please make use of the timestamps in the description below. I didn't see this full movie as a kid. I did see clips of it online and I was very intrigued, however it was just impossible to find really since this movie is an unofficial sequel made in Italy in 1995. I now own it, the Seraphim Blu-ray release, which cost me a fortune and doesn't even work because of region locking, so that was great to find out. However, luckily for me, the full movie is now officially on YouTube in 1080p for free, so hell, if you want to watch it then go ahead. This movie is a rip-off though. It almost completely rips off the plot of the original Jaws movie, sometimes even including lines of dialogue, not just from Jaws 1, but its official sequels too. It also uses a lot of stolen footage from throughout the Jaws franchise, and even stolen footage from other low-budget shark movies at the time, which is just really scummy. However, I see why they did it, because the shark that they use on this movie looks awful. The acting here is not good in any sense of the word, leading to some hilarious moments. I can imagine this movie would be quite a fun one to watch with friends. However, eventually if you're watching it alone, it just becomes quite boring. In fact, it feels like the longest movie in the franchise, despite being the shortest. The music is questionable as well, because sometimes you'll hear this 1980s club sounding music, and then you'll hear a clone of the Star Wars theme instead of a clone of the Jaws theme, which just makes no sense to me. Also, the editing is horrendous. I know I shouldn't expect much from a low-budget Italian clone of Jaws, however there'll be scenes which get quite intense, well, intense for this movie, and then it completely cuts to another scene which is usually the complete opposite mood. So yeah, Jaws 5 Cruel Jaws sucks. I'll admit it can be quite funny, and I bet it's funnier with friends, but it's just a rip-off of Jaws, and I only recommend that to die-hard Jaws fans. Now moving on to the first official Jaws movie on this list, we have Jaws 3. As a kid this was the one I saw the least because I got a box set of all the official sequels, and instead of having Jaws 2 and Jaws 3, it came with 2 Jaws 2 discs instead, which was very upsetting I remember. Then I got a copy of Jaws 3, and it was region locked, and after that I just gave up trying to find this movie, so now unless you count Cruel Jaws, this is my least watched in the entire franchise, since I could only watch it when it was on TV. Nowadays I own a copy, but why would I ever want to go back and watch Jaws 3? This movie for me is by far the worst in the official series. This is because I just don't find any of the characters interesting whatsoever. The movie follows Mike and Sean Brody now working at SeaWorld. A shark enters SeaWorld and they capture it, making it live there as an attraction. However, the shark escapes when its baby dies due to the living conditions, and she begins to cause havoc. It is mental that SeaWorld sponsored this movie, given that the plot is practically based around them being an awful company. To me, the plot and concept itself is actually really good. A shark causing mayhem in a water park? That is something that really appeals to me, so I should like this film. However, I don't, because the execution of it is horrible. Most of the time spent with the staff and the other characters is just really dull. There's none of the charm there that I feel with most other Jaws movies. In fact, it doesn't even feel like a Jaws movie. I don't even remember the theme being used effectively in this one at all. The shark is ridiculous here. When it's not a static animation, it looks like a huge sock puppet. That's another thing to mention, the 3D aspects of this film don't look good at all. They don't even look like they'd have been that good back then either. It's even more annoying because the 3D cameras that they had to use back then have made even modern restorations of the movie look terrible. Even the unofficial Cruel Jaws looks better than this movie in my opinion. Also, this movie was initially supposed to be a spoof movie named Jaws 3 People Zero. I would have loved to have seen that movie, but instead the idea was turned away because they felt like it would have been a disgrace to the franchise, and as such, they made this, which to me is even more disgraceful because it is unintentionally bad and schlocky, which shouldn't be the case for a blockbuster franchise. So, that's Jaws 3, a great concept ruined by a terrible execution. Jaws the Revenge is such a weird one for me to rank. This is the 4th movie in the series and it is often seen as the worst one, but for me, I actually quite enjoy Jaws the Revenge. When I was a kid, I watched this movie a lot. I remember I had a portable DVD player and I would watch this movie on there all the time, not just at home, but I remember watching it on holiday and at my grandma's house. So even though it isn't really that good of a film, I still have some nostalgia and genuine fun with it. The reason I think I prefer this movie to Jaws 3 even now is because I do enjoy the cast of characters. It's nice to see Ellen Brody be the lead now that Martin is dead, even if the cause of death is ridiculous. I really enjoy Lance Guest as Michael Brody. I think he does a nice job here personally. Michael Caine's as lovable as ever. I don't know what he's doing in this movie other than getting a paycheck, but nonetheless he's still so charming. And Judith Barcy as Thea. God bless her soul. She is so sweet in this movie and she definitely deserved a better life. Rest in peace. It's great to see Amity Island once again, and it's strange to have a Jaws movie set at Christmas. However, that winter feeling doesn't last long because they go to the Bahamas, making it feel like a summer movie, even if it's set in the winter, which I'm not sure if that's a clever move or a really dumb one. I think the music is also miles ahead of Jaws 3. Of course you can't beat the first two in that regard, but this one still has a nice soundtrack, and I actually did prefer this rendition of the theme as a kid. I don't now, but I see why I did back then, because it's a lot more tense and, well, revenge-like. The plot is terrible, no beating around the bush there. Whereas Jaws 3 has a good concept, bad execution, this film is just bad through and through. Essentially, the shark in this movie is cursed and wants revenge on the Brody family for killing the other sharks, and as such, the shark follows the family from New York to the Bahamas, beats them there, and starts attacking the family. However, never actually gets any of them beyond the opening scene. It's really stupid. Including the ending, which is something that nobody can explain. It's just... I can't even begin to describe it. It's probably the second most iconic ending in the franchise just because of how laughably bad it is. But aside from all that, most of the movie is spent watching the family and friends hang out together in some sort of melodrama soap opera style way, which is often quite boring, but for some reason I just like it here. I really can't explain why I do. I get why people may hate this movie, but for whatever reason, I just don't. As I said earlier, as a kid I owned 2 copies of this movie, unwantingly sure, but still it led to me watching this movie quite a lot, since when I inevitably ruined one copy of the film, I always had another to fall back on. Jaws 2 feels the most like a direct sequel to Jaws. It features quite a few returning cast members, even mentioning old ones like Hooper. It also has a soundtrack that rivals the original movie, and sometimes even surpassing it in my opinion. The acting is actually quality here, especially from Roy Scheider, and the movie is entirely set on Amity Island like the first one, meaning we get to see a lot of familiar locations and some new ones too, such as the Lighthouse and Cable Junction, which is something I've always loved about Jaws 2. I appreciate the change in direction for this film. With Jaws 1, a lot of the horror comes from the subtlety in that you never see the shark, and even if it isn't actually realistic, it still feels natural how many people the shark eats. With Jaws 2, they seem to have acknowledged that the majority of viewers would have already have seen the first movie, so any suspense or surprise of a shark like in the first one would have just been redundant. So instead they went with a slasher movie style approach where the shark is on screen and visible throughout a lot of this movie, and it is going on a rampage eating and harming as as many people as possible. It's very unrealistic and it isn't that scary because there isn't as much genuine fear like in the first movie. However, it's very fun and entertaining to watch. A lot of people comment on how this movie retreads a lot of what Jaws 1 did, and that is somewhat true, but they definitely focus a lot more on Martin's paranoia and anger in this one, which is just an outstanding performance. They also focus a lot on these teen characters, which is often hated on, but I actually do enjoy them, and that's what gives this movie its unique feeling of being a cross between a slasher movie and a summer movie, not something you see every day. Much like Jaws 3, this movie was not initially supposed to be the movie we ended up getting. At first it was conceived as a prequel to Jaws, called Jaws 2 as in Roman numerals 2, which would have been set on the USS Indianapolis, showcasing all of what Quint went through. This was scrapped, then changed to a sequel very similar to the one we have now, however gone more in a darker direction, showing the Mafia taking over the town, which is from the original Jaws novel. The third version ended up being the version that we got, which is a light-hearted slasher movie take on the Jaws formula. I personally would have loved to have seen Jaws 2 the prequel, but I still overall enjoyed the Jaws 2 that we ended up getting. I mean, are you surprised to see this at number 1? This movie is perfect in my opinion, and ever since I was a kid, this has been my favourite movie of all time. I know that sounds like I'm clinging on to nostalgia and not letting any other movie beat this one, but that isn't true. Over the past few years I've seen movies that I think could surpass this one, but I never think they do in the end because I can always go back to Jaws and have a phenomenal time watching the incredible performances of each and every cast member, the intricate and revolutionary editing, the simple yet effective score by John Williams, and the amazing camera work. Amity Island, filmed on Martha's Vineyard, is one of my favourite settings ever. I'm not a beach or summer person at all, but whenever I see this quaint little island town, I just fall in love. It's such a nice setting and a place that you would want to go. Jaws works because of its characters. Believe me, I've seen many shark movies in my life, and the main reason that this one stands above all the rest is that you just really do love the characters. Just think of scenes like where Sean is copying his father's actions, or the scene where Quint goes into his past, or the scene where Ellen, Martin and Hooper are having dinner. It's all there to make you feel like you're watching real human beings, and I've never ever felt that way with another shark movie. I can't even begin to describe how well the chemistry between the main three characters works. Quint is a working class fisherman with a vengeance against sharks and a huge ego. Hooper is a city-raised oceanographer who is very knowledgeable on what he does. And Brody is the chief of police, who is probably the only non-corrupt member of authority on this island, aside from his partner Hendrix. They all work so well together because of their different backgrounds and the way they go about things differently. It's so perfect, the chemistry that they have. You just have to see it to believe it. I haven't really mentioned it yet, but most Jaws films do not have effective shark attack scenes. But in this one, every single shark attack is terrifying. The opening scene alone has shocked just about everybody who has seen this movie. It's hugely beneficial to the horror of this movie that you don't ever really see the shark until the second half of the film. Though this film is certainly a horror, it isn't all bleak or frightening all the way through like most horror films. Instead, a lot of it is hopeful and adventurous. When the trio are out on the orca and the shark is circling them, you don't just feel scared, you feel hope that the characters can catch or kill this shark, which is a constantly growing feeling you have throughout the entire movie, but especially in the second half when the tremendous music from John Williams kicks in. Speaking of which, everybody knows the theme to Jaws. It's a scary piece of music by design, but if you hear a lot of the music in this movie, you'd notice that it isn't all scary. A lot of it is uplifting and motivational sounding. I haven't spoken much about the endings of these movies, and even though I think Jaws 2 does have a great ending, I don't think they ever match the level of badassery that this movie's ending has. In fact, I don't personally think any movie ending ever has ever been as badass as this one. The delivery of "Smile, you son of a bitch" gets you so hyped, it's bloody perfect. There has recently been talks and rumours of a remake of Jaws, and I personally never ever want a remake of Jaws, because the film is as perfect as films get, and any remake of the movie would just feel like a huge crash grab, and we already know it couldn't beat the original Jaws. If there is ever going to be a remake, then I would prefer it to be more accurate to the book. For those who don't know, the book is not as happy as the film. There is a lot of dark topics in the book, such as a town mafia, cheating, animal murder, and a realistic sadistic death for a shark. None of these things are pleasant, and I'm so glad they aren't in the movie. It makes the movie way more enjoyable. But if they were to remake the movie, I'd rather it be a book-accurate version of Jaws than just a crappy redoing of the already perfect 1979 movie Jaws. Anyway, enough rambling. Jaws is forever the best shark movie and my favourite movie of all time. If you haven't seen it yet, then I 100% recommend it. Trust me, you'll have a blast. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that you've enjoyed watching it as much as I have making it. I've definitely put more effort into this one, and I feel like this is how I want to do my videos from now on. So leave your list in the comments below. I always love interacting with fans, and if it's a topic that I like, such as Jaws, then I could go on forever with conversations, so comment at your own risk, I suppose. With all that being said,